and help those who come after. So it goes a little like this. The words are in your order of service. And it's actually a chalice lighting song that was written to the tune of a Jewish hymn called Avinu Malkeinu. So if you know that song, you'll know this one. It goes like this. Today we light this flame for each unspoken name that inspires us to live, to care and to give, to follow the path of love. Why don't you try that much with me? It goes, today we light this flame for each unspoken name that inspires us to live, to care and to give, to follow the path of love. And then it goes up like this. Today we kindle a light that makes our spirit take flight through good times and bad, happy and sad, everything we can dream of. So try that with me. Through good times and bad, happy and sad, everything we can dream of. And then it just ends with, today we light this flame. So I'm going to try that one more and sing along with me, and then this isn't the actual start of the service. This is me getting a practice in because I didn't get to practice this. Thank you for practicing with me. So it goes, today we light this flame for each unspoken name that inspires us to live, to care and to give, to follow the path of love. Today we kindle a light that makes our spirit take flight through good times and bad, happy and sad, everything we can dream of. Today we light this flame. Thank you. I'm going to go get a drink of water and then we'll start our service. Yeah, that would be great. Right. If the choir could come forward.
Good morning. My name is David Jones. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm a member of the worship committee, and I'll be your worship associate this morning. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are in your life's journey, you are welcome here. Welcome to this live and live streaming service of the Unitarian Society of New Haven. We're a diverse, multi-generational faith community that inspires lives of compassion and generosity, nurtures spiritual growth, cultivates transformative connections, and creates a more just world. This is a congregation that believes Black Lives Matter, that every person has the right to affirm their own gender identity and expression, that all people are inherently worthy. And we believe in using democratic processes to make decisions within our congregation and within society at large. If you're joining us for the first time, we're so glad you chose to spend this time with us. The email address of the Connection team is membership@usnh.org, and you can visit usnh.org to find out more about us. Especially as this is a multi-generational service, we want to remind parents that parents with young children that we have an area set up with some quiet toys at the rear of the sanctuary. Also, if needed, parents or anyone who wants to move around during the service can go to the social hall, which is through the doors at the back of the sanctuary. The social hall is wired for sound, so you'll still be able to hear if you need to go in there. There is only one announcement today, but it's a good one. All are invited to stay after today's service and join us on the front lawn for our all-ages Halloween celebration. There will be coffee, snacks, games, pumpkin painting, music, and space for all of us to spend time together in community. The offering. Every week we lift up the spiritual value of generosity by taking an offering for the ministries of this congregation. You can give by navigating to the usnh.org website and making a donation, or text GIVE at the number in your order of service. There's also many more directions in your order of service if you want more about making an offering. Those here in person can, of course, make donations on their way out of the sanctuary at the end of the service. And as always, donations in any amount are gratefully received. Joys and sorrows. In this spiritual community, we remind ourselves each week that joy and woe are woven fine. Some of us bear burdens made lighter as others help us carry it. Some of us hold joys that shine more brightly as others reflect our delight. We have one joy this morning. The Erard family wishes Elsa a very happy birthday. Her actual birthday was Friday the 25th. Happy birthday to Elsa. Now let's take a moment to bear witness to all that people of this congregation are holding in their hearts. And now we'll have an announcement by our minister. Stephen.
Thank you, David. Tonight, around 5 o'clock, Madison Square Garden, more than 30 speakers will come together to talk about a certain vision of America. Yesterday afternoon, Liz and I came in from an afternoon of errands, and I caught Michelle Obama's words from Kalamazoo, Michigan. It was the best speech I've ever heard in my life. And I've heard a lot of great ones. And I'll be talking about Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s Ripple of Hope speech from South Africa next week. So I think I know my way around a message that strikes home, speaks to truth, and helps us understand what lies before us, and our agency as citizens, and more specifically, in the life of this congregation, what it means to uphold the free religious values that have honed this faith for 400 years, and the people that formed this congregation 71 years ago. Michelle Obama talked about many issues, and I urge you to watch it. I urge you to share it with people that you know and love, and people that you suspect in your life may not understand the vision that she will be talking about, not the vision from the garden this afternoon and evening, but a different vision. And more importantly, at the very heart of her talk, she talked about many things, but she spoke about what it really means for women in this election to feel that they are often being ignored and overlooked, and their bodily autonomy and their fragility has been overlooked. And then she spoke to the men in their lives. And she had tears in her eyes, and I had tears in my eyes, because with the specificity, the heartfelt, rending quality of the predicaments that so many women face, that is on the ballot, that has an existential quality that we must confront, and we will confront. I'll speak much more about all this next week. But I felt it was important to remind everyone as we begin the vote around this great country that there are people who are speaking right to the very heart of who we are and who we must not become. And now this morning's musical chalice lighting, I invite Jesse to begin this service, which he has created with great generosity and creativity. Jesse, light us up.
As Stephen mentioned, our chalice lighting this morning is a sung chalice lighting. Sorry for that. And the words are in your order of service. It is with great intention that I put the words to the chalice lighting to the tune of a Jewish hymn called Avinu Malkeinu. So if you know that song, you know this one. But here are the words. Please sing along with me. I sort of taught it a little bit before the service. So it goes like this. Today we light this flame for each unspoken name that inspires us to live, to care and to give, to follow the path of love. Today we kindle a light that makes our spirit take flight through good times and bad, happy and sad, everything we can dream of. Today we light this flame. I have a story that was written this week for all of you. And if there's anybody in our congregation of any age who would like a little bit of a better view, they can come down here at this time or move closer into a closer pew. And of course, I would ask that our children be present. Lady Justice, I am glad you're with us this morning. Autumn, when the resplendent leaves took flight and the days grew brisk, was always a challenging time for Atlas. Specifically, October 27th was a challenging day, and even more specifically, 2:37 p.m. was a challenging time for Atlas. 3 years ago, at exactly 2:37, on October 27th, Atlas had hung up the phone for the last time with their grandmother. It had been a normal conversation filled with promises. I promise we'll visit soon. Questions about school, baseball season, Italian opera, and of course, how the 2020 Looney Tunes reboot wasn't nearly as good as the Bugs Bunny cartoons from Grandma's childhood. Both Grandma and Atlas had wholeheartedly agreed on that one. If Atlas had known it would be the last time that they'd ever speak to their grandmother, maybe the conversation would have been different, deeper. Had they even said, "I love you," before hanging up? The question haunted Atlas like the ghosts and skeletons that their dad had put up in the yard outside their home. That day, in this story, it was October 27th. It was 11 a.m. The rest of the family seemed not to know how important this day and time were to Atlas. Did they even remember? Dad and Jerry were outside, carving a pumpkin with Atlas's little brother, Deke. They'd invited Atlas to join in, but they had politely declined, claiming to have a stomachache from too much candy at the YRUU youth group Halloween party the night before. Thanks a lot, youth group advisors. Instead, Atlas stared at the picture of Grandma, this one from the town fair years ago, when she was the only person in the family who had been brave enough to ride the big Ferris wheel together with Atlas. Atlas stifled a giggle, remembering how the phone had almost fallen as they held it out to take a selfie. The giggle finally did escape into the stale air of the living room as Atlas noticed for the 100th time that Grandma, at the last minute, had stuck out her tongue right before the selfie was taken. This was too much. How could Dad, Jerry, and Deke be laughing and scooping pumpkin guts at a time like this? How could they be taking this serious day so lightly? How could they? Atlas just had to get out of there. They slid open the door to the patio, mumbled something about taking a walk to get some fresh air, and made their way past the Pumpkin Kings over there, who barely paused their Jack-O-Vivisection to offer up something like, "Hope your tummy feels better soon, honey." Atlas went out on the red trail, which opened a wide, welcoming path into the woods behind Atlas's house. They knew this trail like the back of their grandmother's weathered hand, and it was a favorite destination for melancholy times. They breezed past the old oak that flexibly grew around a large granite stone, as if giving it a hug. They floated by the place where two streams joined together, forming a small rocky river. But that day, as the fated 2:37 crept closer, Atlas wanted to go beyond what they already knew. Grandma was out there somewhere, beyond. So Atlas was seized by an insatiable desire to leave behind all that was known and venture beyond, perhaps to a place where Grandma didn't seem so distant. So they left the familiar trail and picked up speed. The trees didn't vary much. That's what's going on. The trees didn't vary much. There were oaks, maples, ash and laurel, fir and birch, as far as the eye could see. No matter how far Atlas jogged, it all remained the same. There was no change, no beyond. Atlas began running, desperate to get there, wherever that was. And before too long, it felt like it must be 2 o'clock already, if not later. The moment was so close, and yet Grandma had never felt so far away. Atlas found himself exhausted and suddenly scared. Where in the world were they anyway? Everything was still familiar, the same trees and plants, bird calls, but there was no direction, no path, no clear way forward or back. Atlas was hopelessly lost. The sun was behind a curtain of cloud, but seemed perhaps to be brighter somewhere to Atlas's left. So maybe that was southwest, right? Southwest? But which way was the house relative to southwest? In the same way that Atlas's mind had spent the day flooded with all the things they'd wished that they had said to Grandma 3 years ago, doubt rushed in on top of regret like a wave that crashes on top of another wave. Atlas wished they had paid better attention to the direction that they had run. Wished that they had carried the compass that Jerry had given them for their birthday. Wished that they had at least brought their Google Maps equipped phone. But somehow that photo on the Ferris wheel had made the phone feel heavy in Atlas's hand, so they had left it behind on the mantle. I wonder what photos Dad and Jerry will put up on the mantle to remember me by, Atlas caught himself saying out loud, but then shook himself free of that horrible thought and decided to just pick a direction and go. After all, it was 2024, and if you walk in one direction long enough, you're sure to hit a CVS or at least a Dunkin' Donuts. So that's what Atlas did. With a hint of sun now on their right, they set off in what seemed like the direction they'd come, and tried to walk a line, but it was no use. Atlas's legs were aching, they were thirsty, tired, and no closer to finding the beyond that promised proximity to what Atlas was missing most at that moment. Their mind began playing familiar tricks. Wait, have I seen that tree before? What if I'm walking in circles? What if I never make it back? It was right in the middle of that defeatist thought that Atlas stumbled, almost fell over a rock wall. Whoa, who put that there? Atlas asked a nearby chipmunk. The chipmunk answered by scurrying between two stones in the wall, as if to say, don't know, don't care, but it's mine now. The rock wall was only a couple of feet high, crudely built, with wide spaces between the stones. And each stone was gray and green with age, covered in lichens and mosses. The wall wandered, much like Atlas, off through the forest. It wasn't exactly straight, but it did seem to know where it was going. So Atlas decided that after a short rest to regain their strength, they would follow it, hoping it would lead home or to Dunkin' Donuts, whichever came first. Atlas lay down next to the wall, curled into a tight ball, and immediately fell asleep. So concludes part one of our three-part story. As we wait to find out what happens to Atlas, and for that matter, to the rest of us, let us rise in body or spirit and sing together hymn number 1012 in the Teal hymnal, When I Am Frightened.
When I am
Friends, I invite us now into a time of meditation. In the story that we are hearing today, the burdens of sadness and grief wind up being like heavy stones. They rise out of bare earth and fill the spaces before us. At times, our lives can feel ripped open. Our emotional landscape might feel barren. When we lose someone or something important to us, it can leave us empty, open. The loss can feel heavy, can obstruct our progress, can pile up in such a way that we feel limited by it, trapped by it, or even overwhelmed by it. But when we do the work of healing, and yes, my friends, it is work, when we slowly, with great care and self-love, replant our emotional and mental landscape, nourishing a balanced ecosystem within ourselves, we find that what flourishes within us, what gets fed by self-care, community care, art, music, writing, nature, and the 1,000 other soul-feeding things we do that flourishing life within us holds these rocks. It can cradle them and stop them from becoming obstacles. We recognize the rock's mineral beauty. We know that grief and loss are elemental to who we are, but they are not the sum total of our identity. And we move through our own experiences, empowered by what we once had, strengthened by holding loss in love. And now, dear friends, in this safe space, in this sanctuary, I invite you, each person in your own mind, to center in your thoughts a loss that you have experienced. Whether it's a beloved friend, a family member, an animal companion, something that has been lost in the world around you, or perhaps a life experience that is no longer part of your daily existence. Whatever it is, acknowledge that your grief about this loss is real, that the weight of your loss is valid. But just as healthy community and healthy self can help to hold that weight, let us hold it here together, right here, right now. As some music plays, I invite you to come forward if you are so moved and light a candle for that loss that you're holding. Let us hold each other's loss. Let the transformation of wax into heat and light transform the weight we carry into energy that will carry us into whatever comes next. Please rise now as Bill plays and come forward to light a candle, and we will hold that loss together. Friends, you have lit many flames, many burdens, many losses that you are feeling, that you're holding. Let us hold them for each other in a brief time of silence.
Now let us return to the story. Part 2. Atlas was an extremely talented dreamer. They always had been. They dreamed in full technicolor with multiple dimensions and subtitles. The dreams often included title cards, so Atlas would know where and when the dreams were taking place. So it was that Atlas dreamed about walking along the stone wall there in the northern New England forest, except where was the forest? The title card indicated that the dream was set in the year 1821. Instead of the oaks and maples of the forest that Atlas had left in the conscious world, the stone wall was winding its way through an open field, and the meandering stones were brown with soil, having thus far gathered no moss. Atlas had heard the story on NPR that I guess had found its way into their subconscious mind about how farmers used to stack the stones that rose out of their fields, and this must be what was happening now across Atlas's dreamscape. As Atlas wandered, still following the wall, they saw a shape, or rather a mass, of slow, silhouetted movement in the distance. As they drew closer, the mass of slow movement came into sharper focus, and Atlas realized that it was a herd of sheep, slowly being driven in the direction of a farmhouse along the wall by a farmer. Sheep in the Berkshire Mountains, Atlas mused. Who was it that once told me there used to be sheep farms here? Was it Grandma?
Hello!
The farmer waved and beckoned Atlas over.
How are you doing today, Atlas?
I'm fine, but how do you know my name? Atlas gasped in reply.
Your grandmother told me that you'd be by here soon, the farmer said matter-of-factly. Actually, you are a little bit late.
You know my grandma?
Yes, I do. Back in the day, she... Ouch!
The farmer paused a moment because he'd tripped over a fieldstone.
These dang things are everywhere.
He picked up the stone and added it to the wall.
Anyway, your grandma told me that you'd be coming by here, not knowing which way to go. She asked me to point you in the right direction. So here I am, telling you that if you follow this here rock wall, just after dark, you will see the light.
The light of what? Atlas asked, shrugging.
The light of Dunkin' Donuts, of course.
Wait a minute. How do you know what Dunkin' Donuts is? Isn't it 1821?
Beats me. This is your dream in your brain. Why don't you ask yourself that?
Atlas opened their eyes and propped up on an elbow. The wall winded out into the approaching dusk, practically begging Atlas to follow. The farmer was gone. The forest was back, having regrown itself in the waking instant between the 19th century and the present. Just then, Atlas remembered the rest of what their grandmother had told them about the old farm walls. She had said that in the rush to make money off merino sheep after the Napoleonic Wars, farmers had cut down vast swaths of New England forest to create pasture. But without the trees to hold the soil together, rocks rose up every time the ground froze and literally popped out of the dirt like beach crabs at low tide. The farmers found themselves perplexed, wondering how so many rocks appeared seemingly out of nowhere each spring. Not knowing what else to do, they'd piled the stones into long walls, which conveniently helped them keep their sheep from wandering too far. Eventually, the fancy wool fashion fad of the early 1800s ebbed in New England and Europe, just as cotton production in the southern slave states ramped up. With New England topsoil nearly washed away, farming in the Berkshires became much more difficult. Many of the forests of Vermont, western Massachusetts, New York, and Connecticut had been allowed to regrow, but the walls remained, slowly gathering moss across the ages. Atlas followed the wall in a kind of daze, focused on its imperfections, its rough constructions, its curves and broken places. They followed it as the sun sank down below the horizon, as the orange, red, and yellow leaves fluttered around and down, as October 27th bade farewell and became just another day without Grandma. Atlas's footsteps were in such a rhythm that as they marched towards darkness, they forgot all about their thirst and hunger, forgot about their aching muscles, forgot about Ferris wheels, sadness, and long-retired farmers, forgot even to notice the familiar pink and orange lettered sign glowing by the roadside up ahead. And so concludes part 2, and now we'll hear from the USNH choir.
The barista at the Dunkin' Donuts, and I hope we're getting an advertisement for this, called Dad's cell phone. And within minutes, Dad and Jerry and Deke were rushing up the door, engulfing Atlas with bear hugs, whisking them back home. Later, wrapped in blankets, hydrated by tea and warm milk, Atlas recounted the sense of loss that had sent them off seeking the beyond, the finding of the rock wall, the dream of the ancient farmer who seemed to know Grandma, and the way rock walls and voices from that mysterious beyond had guided her back. Dad, Jerry, and even Deke, they took turns apologizing for not seeing how much Atlas had been hurting, and promised the next day they would hold space to remember Grandma's passing and would do whatever Atlas needed to honor that day. Atlas promised to think about it and went down to their room to do just that. And sitting on the bed, once again scrolling photos, Atlas allowed their mind to wander one last time before allowing sleep to claim what little remained of the night. And there was Grandma's face, sometimes quiet and reflective, sometimes smiling, sometimes sticking her tongue out playfully. And then Atlas imagined Grandma next to that rock wall. And at first, Grandma stood next to the wall, as it was in 1821, in Atlas's dream. Piled high, cutting through open field, the product of anti-gravity stones rising to the surface. Obstacles placed in the way of anyone who ventured through. And the only way to smooth out the ground was to pile the stones on top of one another until the way beyond was fully blocked, or perhaps until one was trapped inside. Yet in this vision, the rocks kept rising, kept causing the sojourner to stumble, kept piling up because there was no forest to hold them in place. In Atlas's fading consciousness, Grandma began to move, to sway in the breeze. She lifted her arms, and she began to transform. Her arms became branches, her feet became roots, and her soothing voice became the breeze between falling leaves. Atlas listened to the voice and heard it whispering that there was nothing to worry about. And with the return of the forest, each tree would hold that heavy rock of grief in place, and Atlas would be able to see them, touch them, but they would never again rise as a tide. They would never again throw themselves as obstacles in her way forward towards her own beyond. They would never again be piled up around her, keeping her in like a sheep. Instead, the stones of grief and the trees of healing would always point her way home and wherever Atlas was moved to go. And in the last moment before surrendering to tomorrow, Atlas saw the forest as it is now, full of trees, balanced, the rocks dressed in non-vascular green, and they knew that each tree was a grandparent, each plant a child, each stone a blessing. And Atlas's sadness became a healing beacon, calling to a new day. And as our service winds its way home as well, and as we prepare to sing and to gather and to party outside in our Halloween extravaganza, let us rise as we are willing and able for hymn 306, Sing of Living, Sing of Dying, 306.
friends, we began our service with the chalice lighting that was sung. We use the same tune to extinguish the chalice with words that are in your order of service. Tomorrow hope will live on in the flame of a brand new dawn. The feelings inside us have challenged and tried us. May peace ever guide our way. Even when this flame is blown out, we'll sing and dance and shout. We'll be once again here among friends, with love to guide our way. Today we lit a flame. Isaiah Barnwell said, "The dead are not under the earth, they are in the air we breathe. The dead have a pact with the living. So my friends, may the heavy stones of grief, of fear, of worry, the stones that we see as obstacles or burdens, may these very stones be lifted by our healing work and placed along a path to guide us home, to guide us onward. May it be so." Please join us on the front lawn for a Halloween party. Coffee and snacks will be served on the front steps. There is cookie decorating, pumpkin painting, various games. So come on outside and join us for that. Thank you for spending the morning with us this morning.